And welcome back to Patriotic Art Live. This is episode 3. Today's show is based on Kai Murros. Kai Murros is the theme of our show. He is a speechwriter from Finland, and everybody and anybody inside the white identity sphere should know who he is. A lot of his work is difficult to find on the internet because of its revolutionary spirit. I believe that this speech that I will be playing on the show today is sort of an international debut. It's the first time it's been heard. Kai sent it to me directly, and I'll be playing it in the background while I'm doing some artwork live on the theme of taking back our countries. So this is a very special show. Unfortunately, Paul Patriart is not with me right now for the show. I'm hoping that he'll be able to jump on soon sometime and kind of get back to our usual show format. We both do live art together on the show. But you know, as what they say, the show must go on. So I'm going to be flying solo for a while here. Hopefully, he'll be on. Let me just give you a quick look at the artwork from last week. Last week, we were doing some artwork on this concept. So my image here is basically one of my characters from my Militiaman graphic novel. This character is called West Guard, and I thought I would do sort of a kind of a fine art piece with him at the table facing the viewer here, and the image has a lot of different symbols in it that you can kind of go through and sorry, a little bit of gloss from the light here, but the people that were talking with me about this in the chat were coming up with some really cool ideas about, like, I was asking, what should I put on the table? And one of the cool ideas was to put a chessboard on. Another one was to put this um, on the table. And my image, or rather, my thought is really to use this character and in a sense, this show to call people to get inspired about taking care of our countries, our people, to inspire nationalism. And I've had some interesting conversations with people about nationalism. It's got a stigma in some minds. Obviously, the people who are on the left, they think nationalism bad, And my answer to that is, isn't nationalism the people? So, a lot of times, for example, I have a Palestinian Christian friend who is talking a lot about, the US is doing this and America is doing that. And I said, well, hold on a second. It's the government that's doing that. And that government is, infiltrated by, foreigners. So you can't say America because I'm not doing it. And there's a ginormous amount of people that are against a lot of what the current administration is doing, and so on and so forth. So the nation is the people. And so this is something that we have to kind of return to, is return to this idea of reconnecting with our people, reconnecting with our past, our history, and fighting for it if necessary. So there's many ways to do that. I'm kind of on the artistic front, on the cultural front, the culture war, the information war. That's where my skill sets apply best. There's other people with different skill sets that have different abilities, and so you should sort of find out where you fit in this battle to save Western civilization. So anyway, I just thought I'd give you guys a look at this. This piece is also on sale for $75. If someone would like to purchase it, you can contact me. Of course, I'll sign it and I'll send it to you. You can contact me through my website. The link is here on my YouTube, also kent-art.weebly.com. And so this and the other, all the pieces that I do on this show will be for sale. This is a little hard to see this image, but essentially this is the design that I've come up for today's show is an image of Thor smashing boats of illegals coming into the northern European countries. So We're going to play the Kai Murros speech in a minute. That's Kai Murros on screen there. Maybe zoom in a little bit. On this, the age of guilt is over. We will not apologize for our achievements. Our history cannot be used as a weapon against us. We are in debt to no one. Our glorious past is a matter of pride and joy to us. Whatever we have done in the past only inspires us today for even greater deeds for tomorrow. Those who feel that we have wronged them should be happy they are still alive. Kai Moros. So this is what I mean. This guy is he's a hero. He's a really huge figure in our movement, and his words are very powerful and very inspiring. So what I'm going to do is play his new speech, and while I'm working. And once again, I'm hoping that Paul jumps on if he's available. But once again, the show must go on. So let me quick say hello to Hollandier and Hippocratic Oath in the chat. Great to see you guys. I know Tuesday afternoon, at least in the States, is not prime time for people to watch a show, but you can check the playback. Let's the um, get the show on the road here with Kai's speech, and I will put myself on mute and play this in just a second. Very powerful words. We can chat together in the chat once in a while, but I'll be doing some art while we're listening to this and putting myself on mute.
Sveriges sak är vår. Sweden's cause is ours. Today, these words are even more important for us Finns, as Sweden is plunging into chaos and is facing ethnic peril. Swedes, the people who are closest to us, the people who are most like us, the people who have shaped us Finns more than any other people on earth, the people with whom we have the longest shared history, the people with whom we have experienced great triumphs and successes, as well as terrible blows of fate, the people who in the end will always be the nearest and dearest to us. Our other half, our northern brother nation, has now chosen death, has decided to disappear, to retreat into the shadows and fade away. Sweden is on the verge of committing ethnic suicide by drowning into the human flood streaming from the third world. The thought is unbearable that there would no longer be Sweden, that Sweden would be replaced by alien creatures, barbarism, chaos, and lawlessness, that Sweden would be nothing more than a metastasis of the third world. The idea is so intolerable that it makes one sick. The idea is so infuriating that it brings out a murderous rage in oneself. The idea is so horrifying that it makes one think of ruthless schemes, appalling atrocities, and inhumane measures in order to prevent this from happening. One is convinced that even the most extreme acts of cruelty are justified only to save Sweden. One feels a savage hatred of all those responsible for Sweden's wretched present state, that Sweden would no longer exist, that Sweden would disappear and die. The idea is so intolerable, we cannot allow it to happen. One cannot help thinking that in order to save Sweden, we must actually save the Swedish people from themselves. It is clear that the Swedes need a massive kick in the arse in order to wake up. Swedes must be severely shaken so that they may realize the madness of their actions. How can it be that the Swedes as a nation have chosen death over life? Where does this idea come from? Who has planted it in the hearts and minds of the Swedish people? The Swedes are victims of their industriousness and intelligence. If we were stupid and lazy, this country would be poor and no one would want to come here. but you have used your skills to make Sweden one of the best countries in the world. And now everyone wants to come here and feast at your expense. A mutation in the ideological
Middle of the show and in the middle of a great speech. Let me start that over, guys. So sorry for that. Um, I tell you, computer gremlins. You got to watch out for those gremlins. They will. Oh, let's see. Oh, here comes Paul. Excellent timing. Hey, Paul.
Hey,
Good to
how
have
you
you.
doing?
You came just in time. The having some technical difficulties with the speech audio, so you came in and
Okay.
saved me. How we doing, buddy?
No, yeah, good. Obviously, I thought there was a little bit of a confusion on my part for the timing. I think because we did one of them about 4 p.m. GMT, and that was
Yeah.
like 6 p.m. the current time zone I'm at. So
Okay.
yeah, but
It's
no
okay. I'm
worries.
just glad to have you here. That's what it's about.
Cool.
And that's
Yeah,
partly my fault too. Sometimes it's confusing when you're doing shows between America and Europe and the time difference and these things that does
yeah,
get
yeah.
confusing. But
But yeah, we'll get a proper established time for next week, I guess.
sounds
I'll know
good.
exactly
Sounds good.
when. So
Sounds-
officially, when was it? 7:30?
Oh yeah, it was about a half hour ago, roughly. But anyway, we
Ah,
can
okay,
just
7 o'clock.
keep rolling. If you want to, get your artwork on screen and show us what you did last week as well, that could be
Yeah,
a
we
good
could
way
do.
to.
I've been very busy this week, so I didn't actually get a chance to finish it. I did want to finish it today,
Yeah,
but
I had to spend some extra time to get mine done. I
yeah, that's
actually I
cool.
usually live stream my comics, but this time I live
Turned
streamed
out
just
really
for.
well.
Yeah, I came up with this concept to sort of offer the viewer, you know, sword, helmet, shield to kind of join the fight, in a sense.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
yeah, you know, it's as if the choices here are on a timer that you have to choose soon or now. That the
Hmm.
circumstances are very grave and that we need to get on it. So, and then the use of the white in here, I think, adds a nice bit of contrast, to the
Hmm.
overall quality of the piece.
Who's that on the wall, huh?
Oh, that's Uncle A is what we call him there, overseeing the situation of Rooney.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this I had a little chat before the audio uh, went out on me about the meaning of nationalism and how the truth of it is it's about the people. And the
Mm.
people of the land are one, and that it's not, nationalism is not about your government. Your government doesn't, especially now more than ever, governments are against their own people all over the world. If
Yeah.
you look at the recent votes with the World Economic Forum, and overwhelmingly the governments have all, agreed to go along with all of these new forms of slavery, digital currency, and all the leftist nonsense about, how they're going to social engineer us into
Yeah.
a giant golden cage. So it's that is the question of our time. That is the issue of our era. Is will the people stand up globally? And again, this, like I've said before, that the question transcends race. Obviously, you got to look out for your own, but
Yeah.
in another sense, in maybe a meta political sense, we could somehow ideally work together to oust these kind of satanic pedophiles, just to be
Yeah, I
honest
mean,
about.
well,
Yeah,
the way I see it is, I mean, even as nationalists,
yeah,
our values are universal, right? So we
yes,
believe others have their own homelands, and They have the right to predetermination and their own cultures as they see fit.
Yes,
But
yes.
that's all we ask and expect for ourselves. We don't want to be governed
Right,
by any
right.
foreign bodies,
Hmm. Hmm.
any international cliques of people in the
Yes, yes.
shadows anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
We want to be in control
Cabals,
of our own money supply,
of
um,
course.
media, banking system, and so on. And
Hmm.
we expect that others should have the same. I mean, I know we've probably
Absolutely. Yeah,
meddled in.
that's the other side of nationalism is that nationalists support other nationalists. So, I like when you hear about the World Economic Forum, United Nations, the cabal pushing in on, say, Japan and saying, you really need to bring in lots of migrants and you got to get on the diversity train. And Japan is fighting against it to retain their autonomy, their ethnic autonomy, etc. It's a
Mm,
fight. It's a fight for their nation and their people. It's nationalism. So I support, you know, people having their own nations and their own sovereignty. So like I've been a
yeah.
huge supporter of Native American sovereignty. I've worked with local tribes to help them with their education and
Hmm.
I have a huge background in all of this stuff, and so it's you know it's just everything has its place and people have their place. So anyway, it's a big topic, but
Yeah. No, I know.
anyway, yeah. So I guess what I'm gonna try, I have two versions of the speech that I was playing, and the other one is more kind of high res, so to speak. I don't know what to call that for audio, but anyway, I'm gonna play the other one, and it should not uh, sort of shut off randomly in the middle of the speech. So if you want to get your artwork up on the screen, what do you have in mind today for?
Um,
Well,
well, to be honest, I was just gonna freestyle.
yeah,
I mean,
that's fine.
I do at some point want to finish off the other the last week's piece, but
Hmm. Hmm.
there's some things I need to do for it that I probably that won't be able to be screened now.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, just a sketch or something like that.
Well, there's some good
Uh,
pictures of Kai online that you could work with if you want to do digital.
yeah,
Um,
I'll probably will do some kind of portrait or something.
Mhm. Okay, cool, cool. All right, so I'll get the audio back on, and you can get yourself set up, and then we'll just keep rocking and rolling. I'm going to say a quick hello to people in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Hiddle, it's wonderful to have you here. I love Kai Moros. His writings are underrated and need to be more widely distributed. Yes, so that's part of what I'm doing. I'm a personal friend with him. Ricky Cito's here, awesome. Let's see, my channel's here. It's always great to have you here. Wonderful guy in my channel. Spent 11 minutes wasting my brain watching some AI generated cartoon. Well, now you're here. You get some good quality programming. My good friend Alfric is here. It's Rudolph Antler up on the wall. I guess he's referring to something on here, perhaps. Anyway, let's get rocking. I will be putting both of us on mute. Paul, you can. Uh, there's a private chat here on StreamYard if you need to talk to me or something on the side. So
Okay.
let's back to the action. You guys will give me a moment here. I appreciate you guys all coming. Hmm. Let's do it this way. Um, okay, I'm going to put you on mute here, buddy, and then we'll get rolling. There we go. All right, so I pray to God that the audio works out for the show here. So let's do our best. Hope that the computer gods will cooperate with us. and see what we got.
Sveriges sak är vår. Sweden's cause is ours. Today, these words are even more important for us Finns, as Sweden is plunging into chaos and is facing ethnic peril. Swedes, the people who are closest to us, the people who are most like us, the people who have shaped us Finns more than any other people on earth, the people with whom we have the longest shared history, the people with whom we have experienced great triumphs and successes, as well as terrible blows of fate. The people who in the end will always be the nearest and dearest to us. Our other half, our northern brother nation, has now chosen death, has decided to disappear, to retreat into the shadows and fade away. Sweden is on the verge of committing ethnic suicide by drowning into the human flood streaming from the third world. The thought is unbearable that there would no longer be Sweden, that Sweden would be replaced by alien creatures, barbarism, chaos, and lawlessness, that Sweden would be nothing more than a metastasis of the third world. The idea is so intolerable that it makes one sick. The idea is so infuriating that it brings out a murderous rage in oneself. The idea is so horrifying that it makes one think of ruthless schemes, appalling atrocities, and inhumane measures in order to prevent this from happening. One is convinced that even the most extreme acts of cruelty are justified only to save Sweden. One feels a savage hatred of all those responsible for Sweden's wretched present state, that Sweden would no longer exist, that Sweden would disappear and die. The idea is so intolerable, we cannot allow it to happen. One cannot help thinking that in order to save Sweden, we must actually save the Swedish people from themselves. It is clear that the Swedes need a massive kick in the arse in order to wake up. Swedes must be severely shaken so that they may realize the madness of their actions. How can it be that the Swedes as a nation have chosen death over life? Where does this idea come from? Who has planted it in the hearts and minds of the Swedish people? The Swedes are victims of their industriousness and intelligence. If you were stupid and lazy, this country would be poor and no one would want to come here. But you have used your skills to make Sweden one of the best countries in the world. And now everyone wants to come here and feast at your expense. A mutation in the ideological DNA of social democracy has turned what once was such an honorable ideology into a cancer that is killing Sweden. We can only wonder what kind of country Sweden would be today if the positive developments of the mid-1900s had been able to continue without this devastating mutation. The question is, what should be done? We must also ask, is there something we cannot do? Or is there something we must not do? The answer to the latter question is easy. There are no moral or ethical constraints on actions aimed at saving Sweden. Measures aimed at restoring Sweden's vitality will inevitably be so radical that all conventional notions of right and wrong and good and evil will have to be abandoned. Protecting Sweden's existence is more important than all platitudes about human rights. Protecting Sweden's very survival outweighs the liberal ethics. Over the past decades, the Swedes have managed to make Sweden a home for foreigners, but increasingly alien and hostile to Swedes themselves. The Swedes have allowed the most vile types on this planet to enter Sweden. The Swedes have collected the most atrocious gangs of thugs into Sweden. The Swedes seem to pride themselves when the makeup of Sweden's population is more like a lineup of criminals. When the aliens spit Swedes in the face, they wipe away the slime and smile quietly. When the intruders rob Swedes, Swedes want to learn to understand them better. When immigrants murder Swedes, the Swedes feel guilty. When Swedish girls are raped by foreigners, Swedes worry about how to rehabilitate and reintegrate the rapists back into the society. When violent intruders humiliate Swedes, they simply ignore it. When brazen invaders laugh at Swedes, Swedes laugh with them. Swedes seem to take great pride in how gullible they can be. Swedes seem to compete with one another over how naive they can be. In Sweden, exposing publicly one's foolishness is a form of virtue signaling. Sweden, the moral superpower, survives only if people commit themselves to high-flying fantasies and ideals that have no place in real world. The sense of self-worth of the Swedish people is built on the assumption that they, of all the people on the planet, can create that worldly social democratic paradise for all mankind to behold. The secularized Protestant ethics help Swedes to cope with the situations when reality bites them in the arse. The secularized Protestant ethics demand Swedes to accept suffering, even rape, murder, theft, and arson in order to be good people. Because only Swedes can create that flawless social democratic paradise for all mankind to behold and emulate. The secularized Protestant ethics demand Swedes to be industrious, disciplined, and ascetic. Work hard for others, accept physical attacks and the abuse, and never ever lose your faith in humanist fairy tales. There is no room for slip-ups or ideological laziness. Åsiktskorridoren must be kept as narrow as possible. The evil still lurks in the Swedish society. Political correctness requires everyone to be vigilant, 24/7, 365 days a year. Ideological and moral purity demands maintaining a constant state of paranoia. And indeed, the Swedes have become the modern Puritans. Swedes are so pure in thought and deed that they are virtually autistic. Most Swedes are like trained seals, flapping their flippers when they hear trigger words such as human rights, refugees, minorities, feminism, immigration, etc. The affluence of the Swedish society has made it possible for Swedes to indulge themselves with self-denial. The wealth Swedes have accumulated allows Swedes to dabble with threats to their personal safety. The relative safety of Swedish society, at least so far, has enabled Swedes to play with fire. The Swedes are now competing in self-destruction. Swedes control each other, behavior, words, gestures, emotions, and even thoughts. Swedes are forcing each other to submit to this madness. Swedes talk of human rights, but seem to think that human rights are only for the immigrants, not for Swedes themselves. Sweden has become a cult, a perverse, masochistic cult of self-hatred. Foaming at the mouth, the hysterical left wants to kill all those who refuse to worship the god of self-destruction. The red scum screams death to those who want Sweden to live. Toxic intellectuals spit venom on those who still defend the rights of the Swedes. A perverted culture mob ridicules and desecrates Swedish traditions, history, values, and ideals. Journalists, those intellectual whores, attack those Swedes who still love their country and launch persecution campaigns against them. The media incites Swedes to self-destruction. Mocking Swedishness has become fashionable. The disappearance of Swedishness is declared as an ideal. Media whores compete over who is the loudest in denying Swedishness. In entertainment, Swedishness has been made a laughingstock. And all this under the auspices and with the generous support of the Swedish political system. The Swedish political system is waging war against the Swedes, unfortunately with the obliging help from the Swedes themselves. The Swede who still loves his country and his people is outlawed. He must fear violence, persecution, and isolation. The state has no interest in protecting him. The Swede who still loves his country and his people is a criminal. He must be studied, monitored, analyzed, and scrutinized so that he can be either cured or destroyed. The Swede who still loves his country and his people is a freak. He's flawed, evil, sick, stupid, mad, pathetic. In Sweden, believing in irrational humanist utopias is now the highest civic virtue. In Sweden, denying the truth is the highest civic duty. In Sweden, collective self-destructive madness has been turned into a state ideology. The crazy, idealistic, world-embracing fantasies have become the ultimate truth in Sweden. Self-indulgence is a luxury of the rich, decadent societies, and Sweden is rich, at least for now. Sweden has managed to buy the immigrant areas quiet, for now. The Swedish state has been able to buy peace. Weak politicians still manage to maintain the illusion of peace. The fantasy of a multicultural nation is costing a fortune, but so far there is enough money. One day, when the money runs out, the pets of the political elite will bite off the feeding hand. As the global economy collapses, so will the fantasies of the Swedish elite. The violence in the immigrant areas will spread throughout the society. As economic conditions worsen, the immigrant masses will be the first to fall into poverty. As the welfare state crumbles, social services collapse, and the subsidized jobs created for immigrants with huge costs disappear. The impoverished immigrant masses will feel betrayed and leave their areas. The poverty-stricken immigrant masses will demand justice at the expense of the Swedes, of course. The destitute immigrant masses will demand their fair share of the wealth of the rich Swedes. The angry immigrant masses will demand revenge for the injustices they have suffered in Sweden. The enraged invaders will ask why the Swedes still have so much and they have nothing. The disgruntled intruders and the left-wing intelligentsia will ask why the Swedes never really opened their homes to outsiders. Violence will spread to all parts of the Swedish society, and rightly so, say the academics. Faced with the murderous zeal of racial aliens, Swedes are urged to look in the mirror and feel ashamed. Sweden no longer belongs to Swedes. Sweden belongs to the whole world. Politicians, especially the Social Democrats, wanted to turn immigrant masses into their political clients. The Social Democrats wanted the immigrant masses to be their own ethnic allies who would vote for them generation after generation, thus cementing the power of the Social Democratic Party. Securing the power of the Social Democratic Party in Sweden required an ethnic and demographic revolution. Immigrant masses could be the gun pointed at the Swedish people. Other parties also wanted to turn immigrants into their pets. Other parties wanted to do what the Social Democrats had done. So the anti-Swedish consensus eventually spread throughout the political system. Even the apparent violence and volatility of the immigrant youths suited Social Democrats well. Immigrant youths could act as a force of coercion in the society and scare the Swedes to shut their mouths. Immigrant youths could act in tandem with the radical leftists as a kind of ethnic red guard. Now even crime could serve noble political ends. Immigrant youths and far-left fanatics would do the dirty work, which the journalists, intellectuals, and the culture crowd supported, but were too cowardly, lazy, and middle class to do themselves. Soft Swedes would be afraid of immigrant youths and would learn to be ashamed of their Swedishness. Wimpy Swedes would be afraid of young immigrants and start hiding their Swedishness. Swedishness would become a thing for the despised and marginalized, the losers in society. The entertainment industry began to glorify the immigrant crime, while Swedes were portrayed as cowards and cash cows, which of course they are. Swedes fell in love with the arrogance of the young immigrant males. Swedes fell in love with their violent nature, swagger, self-confidence, vitality, and the physical and sexual power they project. The Swedes fell in love with the fervent identity and strong sense of community the immigrants clearly have. In immigrants, Swedes fell in love with everything the Swedes themselves were no longer allowed to be. Swedes began to see Swedishness as hollow, lethargic, boring, impotent, bland, and lifeless. And it was true. Swedes had been passivized by the welfare society, and they had become atomized individuals without the protection of their family or ethnic community. Swedes, pacified by the welfare state, had become decadent hedonists who, when faced with problems, retreated to their swanky IKEA homes. Swedes, pampered by the welfare state, had become naive fools who, like the dodo birds, waddled on to welcome thieves, murderers, and rapists entering their country. The collective Stockholm syndrome was taking hold at a national level. Swedes began to identify with those who were violent, arrogant, and demanding. The Swedes submitted to the modern nomads. Submission became the new ideal of the Swedes. The synthesis between degenerate liberal Protestantism and corrupt social democracy is now bearing poisonous fruit. The moral universe demands of the individuals a conventional and submissive personality. The combination of degenerate liberal Protestantism and corrupt social democracy has lobotomized Sweden and denied the Swedish people their innate sense for self-preservation. The traditional balance of yin and yang has been lost in Sweden. The yin element dominates Sweden completely, while yang has been declared a crime. Sweden, in its death throes, is therefore characterized by toxic femininity. However, the worst enemy of the feminist and liberal ideology is biology. The childlike idealism of the ideological superstructure is threatened by primitive urges and violent impulses from below. The most powerful challenger to the superego is the subconscious. The destruction of the toxic femininity that currently dominates Sweden lies in uncontrolled masculinity. The antithesis of the intellectual, hypermoral, sterile, theoretical, cerebral, and abstract blather is the beast lurking in the human subconscious. Destructive masculinity will show no mercy to degenerate, unnatural feminist power structure. The ideal man for the feminist, liberal, submissive Sweden is therefore a eunuch. Only a castrated man can adapt to the ideals of the new society. Feminists and liberals can sleep well at night only if they can be certain that the Swedish male has been castrated and subdued. But feminists and liberals cannot sleep well at night because they know they cannot overcome biology. Biology is realized in human beings in their survival instinct, territoriality, and sex drive. Human passions, impulses, and desires based on biology are manifested at the cultural level in myths and legends. Myths and legends are dangerous, and feminists and liberals know this very well. Myths and legends are the collective dreams of a civilization. That is why feminists and liberals hate myths and legends. Feminists and liberals want to replace myths and legends with control, safety rules, regulations, laws, norms, and political correctness. Feminists and liberals want to replace myths and legends
So you guys can hear me, right? I'm not on mute. So it seems like we're having more audio issues. Am I correct? You guys can hear me, right? I'm not. Yeah, I'm very disappointed in that, but I'm sorry. What can I do? Let's see. Very happy that you guys are still engaged, though, in what we're talking about here, what we're about. Um, I have my phone that I can listen to, and I can hear like, okay, is the audio coming through? And it was coming through, and then I just went back to work, and then I noticed that it's not coming through. So I'll see if I can work with that, but otherwise, hope you guys are enjoying the art. Let me move things around a little bit, give you a little update on what I'm doing here. Essentially, I have an image of Thor destroying these migrant boats from the UN as they come in to shore. But I'm really liking what Paul's doing over there, and I'm gonna try to get back to the speech. I don't know where or how the audio cut off. Yes, let's pop this on the screen here. That's well done. Sadie's here. Great to have you, Sadie. Um, how long was the audio going for you guys before it went off? I don't know how it could have gone off, but I'm gonna go back and play it over again and see if I can get that going. Let's see. And it's such a good speech, so let's give it a try. Sorry for the dead air, guys. Hang on. Okay. All right.
The Swedish state has been able to buy peace. Weak politicians still manage to maintain the illusion of peace. The fantasy
All right, so what's going on is StreamYard will not allow three screens on at one time, apparently. So I apologize for that. Maybe we can talk a little bit about Kaimuros and what he's about. Um, yeah, so National Revolution. I mean, whatever you caught on there is it's pretty strong stuff. Let me add a comment here. Sadie says, "Whatever we have done in the past only inspires us to do more." Yeah, she's reading that one quote that I had. I'm gonna put another image on screen um, that will hopefully help. I'm gonna Paul, can you hear me, buddy? I've got you off mute so we can chat a little bit. Maybe I'll get him on as well.
Uh,
Yeah, there you are. All right, so StreamYard is limited in how many images and people and sounds can go on a screen at one time. So what I'm gonna have to do is reschedule the speech, and so that I
okay.
can focus on the speech audio and not have these annoying technical difficulties. So there's only so much you can do. You know, I'm with one hand I'm working this stuff, and then the other hand I'm working the laptop.
Yeah.
And so I apologize to the audience. I think that what's cool is that you're getting a pretty sweet art show here. I'm very much enjoying Paul's art. It's quite nice. Um,
I fancy just doing a little bit of a graphic piece. This is inspired by Wave Guy with the
mhm.
ultimate contrast wave.
Okay.
So I
Let
thought I'd
me,
just yeah, inspired by the speech. I'm not sure which.
there you are. Okay. Sweden no longer belongs to Swedes. Yeah. He doesn't pull any punches. You know, Kaimuros is every speech he's ever done is very, very much a call to revolution. He's not shy about it. He doesn't mince words. When I first discovered him, I was kind of shocked almost. One of the things that he talks about in this current speech is about the power of biology as being stronger than ideology, and
Yeah,
how, you know, in the end, our people will come to a point where our biology outweighs the ideology. And it's tough because we're, especially places like Sweden and Germany, and I guess the UK to some extent as well, there's this massive kind of sort of matrix or bubble around the people that punishes the people of the country from defending themselves, from talking openly and honestly about their situation with their migrant crisis.
mm,
So, and, you know, essentially, Kai is just speaking the truth that people are not courageous enough or not free enough to say. I would say that he's what he's saying is what we're thinking, but a lot of people are afraid to say. So it's pretty powerful stuff. Um,
yeah, he's
yeah,
spot on. I mean, it's quite motivational as well, isn't it?
very much, very much. Yeah.
It's kind of inspiring, and hard to think how anyone could listen to it and not feel something.
Oh my God, I know, I know. I guess I'm frustrated because I checked on my phone that the audio was coming through, and it was, and then magically it stopped.
I,
So
I think it may have been as soon as you actually um, enabled my screen because it was
oh,
dormant for a moment, and then I noticed that
oh,
since then I
I
was
see.
thinking, oh, I've heard this
So
already.
here's the thing. Now, what's going on this time is you have two screens. You've got your icon where I'm talking to you, and then you have a second screen that's your art. And I don't know if you can do your art on one screen, and then maybe I can pull in the speech. Is that possible?
Should be.
Okay.
I don't know how I've got two screens on, but
I know that that's
I think yeah, it's more like the webcam space that would normally be used for me showing
okay.
a webcam,
Yeah.
and then there's my actual share screen. So
Yes.
it's probably getting confused.
All right. Well, I'm going to reschedule the speech. I think that at least with this show, this is an art show, so we're certainly doing our artwork here, and that's the focus. But the speech I thought would have been perfect as far as like background, uh, not music, but like something that informs the images that we're working on here.
Yeah.
Um, so. Anyway, I want to thank everybody in the audience for your patience with that. Um, it's great to see a bunch of friends here. We've got Imminent Rain, Hail So Hard. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of good friends here. I've been doing a lot of art streams as well, and so like
Okay.
on a previous art stream, I took some time to finish up what I was doing last week. And for people who just came on the show, this is the kind of end result of last week's theme, and essentially it fits the Kaimoro speech a lot too, because here this character is kind of offering the viewer a sword, shield, and a helmet. Um, how all this plays out, I guess, still remains to be seen. But I feel very much that our people are we're really running out of time in a sense. Like I feel like we're in a kind of a funnel at this point where we're gonna have to make some choices, and how
Hmm.
that plays out, we'll see. And of course, every country's got a different kind of situation. So um,
Yeah. I
I
think.
think in the end, though, ultimately, it really is about having a strong sense of self, a strong sense of nationhood, peoplehood, history, and that plays into why we do what we do, why gives us the kind of force, the motivation, if you will, to fight, in whatever way that we can. That's the idea. And in the speech, and again, I don't know how much people heard, but um, something that Kaimoro said that moved me a lot was the idea that, in a sense, it's a kind of a shaman's movement that we have to inspire a strong sense of like tapping into something ancient and profound in ourselves that can help us get the courage and the energy and the foresight to defend ourselves and our lands.
Yeah. Uh, I think there is a. I think there's a definite awakening of people. I've seen a lot of reactions. More so, people are getting angry.
Yeah.
But I think I just think it's what the state wants. I mean, all of what he said is
Hmm.
coming true, but
Yeah.
it's that is part of their ultimate plan to. And Mark Collett has touched on this recently with
Hmm.
their 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 intention to crack down on free speech
Hmm.
laws and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
general controlling of people.
Right.
And
Right.
they want to cause conflicts. Conflict is how they
Hmm.
essentially bring about their kind of control.
Hmm. Hmm. In That's true. They create a crisis and then create or the answer to the crisis. In New York State, the governor recently made some pretty strong announcements about uh, just kind of I don't know how to phrase it, but essentially stopping hate, and all of this kind of
Hmm.
stuff that like and and coming out with ideas and plans and big talk about how hate crimes, this, that, and the other thing. And there's really no hate crimes. There's people speaking the truth on the internet, and the small hat tribe is losing control of the narrative, and so the bigwigs, the puppets, the sort of Shaboskoys have to do a little dance and get out there and intimidate the public and you know earn their shekels,
Yeah.
I guess, if you will. But it's a very hard place for us as the people to come to some kind of, well, what do we do? How do we speak up about these things? How do we represent ourselves? And then at the same time don't get caught in the machine. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
exactly. They,
very
they, I think, yeah, they're trying to provoke reactions, and then it's like in the UK in London. I don't know if you heard about it, but
mm,
it was the reason why they let Tommy Robinson off the leash,
okay.
to essentially rally a sort of get a mob of sort of more right wing kind of football, but the football hooligan types that are just
Right, right,
angry
right.
and low IQ, don't really know how to
Mm,
channel it,
I
not really
know.
part of our circles, but
Yeah.
they're the kind that went down there that are looking to get violent.
Into fights.
And
Okay.
yeah, and this there was an epic protest um, on behalf of
It's in the
Palestinians,
news. It's
obviously.
yeah, it's in the news. It's definitely big news. But
Yeah,
my
but that was
understanding is
completely
that
overshadowed,
okay.
by what happened. Um, and again, they're looking to demonize the right. They always control the narrative.
Right. So the people I know were essentially saying that like Tommy Robinson is a kind of he's like a Pied Piper that brings conservatives out into this type situation, and then sort of like what we call a honeypot, which is a
Yeah, yeah.
honeypot is a thing that the FBI does where they try to get people who are in our movement to do something violent, and then they swoop in and arrest them. And then of course the you know Jewish infiltrated government says, "Look, see, we need more laws and more laws and more and more." And
Hmm.
it's a honeypot. So I
Yeah.
suspect that I mean, I can't be like convinced to do such things. I think people who are really legitimately part of the white identity movement are savvy to this stuff. We've known about it for a long time. This is like anything in any kind of event of that kind. You've got 4chan and Poll, coming out with all the data on, okay, here's like say the Las Vegas shooting or the Buffalo shooting or this shooting or that shooting, and I don't know so much about the news in Europe, but like those are the things that we're pretty aware of over here, and we try to get the news out. We try to explain to people like, look, this is a Fed op. Like this is what they do. Like that's their function. The head of the intelligence services are all Jews.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, over here, and among many other you know things and areas, departments. But so we certainly don't want to fall into those traps, but simultaneously, the circumstances we're living in calls on us to be creative. And I mean, here, what we're doing with this show is creative. In a sense that we're kind of creating some community and doing something healthy. But in the end, you know, our enemies are not lawful. They're not us. They celebrate violence. They love violence, and we see that
Hmm.
every day. There was a case in the news about a white boy who was beaten to death um, by just a bunch of black kids, I think, at his school. And
Right.
in England, you've got these grooming gangs, these kind of rape gangs, and I would say that like the politicians and the law enforcement that allow these these gangs to exist and keep doing what they do are maybe worse in many ways. I just saw a report of a Muslim police chief in England who just got arrested for rape. And I'm like, and it's
Yeah.
what is the freaking deal with these people in rape? Like there's some really sick fucks, basically. I mean, but again, it comes down to that kind of like demoralization and demonization, and I don't see how you can't. Like I don't get it. I mean, the whole thing is just mind blowing. We all know we've been over this like 1,000 times. It's kind of what we do. We're aware of the things that are going on. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the circle is closing in, and I don't know at what point are we going to not have any more choices. And then who are we going to be fighting? Are we going to be fighting our own governments, our own law enforcement, or I mean, are they going to be side by side with these migrants? I mean, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
very
I mean, I personally think that I think the system will collapse under its own weight.
okay.
To be honest, I think anarchy is definitely gonna pursue, but essentially, it seems to me that what these international powers are looking to do is they're
Mhm.
obviously pushing things towards a complete totalitarian control through tech.
Yes,
And
yes.
but the thing is, they they they're still in a fight. It's like a wrestling match. Obviously, they have
Mhm.
the biggest control right now, and they can control the narratives and everything. But they've still
Yeah.
got the bull, kind of the rope around the bull, and they're still pulling us towards the
Mm.
into the gate. And there's a tipping point, I think, that will occur whereby it's that precise tipping point whereby they will have um, barely any control. Um,
Mm.
but
Mm.
there's a short time frame by which we need to capitalize on that, and at that point, that's where we can kind of shine and emerge. When they, have kind of like dropped the marble, waiting for it to be transferred into the other hand. And
Mm.
it's at
Mm.
that
Mm.
point when we need to essentially be ready. And and I think that's where we will obviously face adversity on many fronts, including different
Yeah.
racial groups,
Yeah.
um, conflicts with those, and um, but we will, you know, I don't think it's a completely unique time. It is definitely
Mhm.
a challenge that our people have faced before, throughout many
Yeah.
different centuries, um,
Mm.
even with regards to Islamic forces ensuing, um,
Right.
like the likes of Spain and so on,
Mm.
and kind
Mm.
of deep into Hungary and other parts of Eastern Europe,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and we've prevailed. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, what he says about the biology taking over, and I do believe it will. I mean, it's foolish really to demonize whites and say, yeah, we are the most savage people across the whole face of the world that have ever lived. We've done all of this. And yet they've got their boot on our neck. And so
Right.
do they not think that, when we actually come to a point where we have
Mm.
had enough,
Yeah.
that kind of mindset that is part of us, or that capacity to be able to be
Mhm.
ruthless
Yeah.
and barbaric,
Right.
that will emerge at some point. It's obviously repressed right now in us. We've been very
Mhm. Mhm.
pacified.
Yeah.
Been brought up without war. We've
Right. Right.
we've
Right.
never had to work. Like, for example, we don't have to chop our own wood. We don't have to be out in the
Mhm.
elements picking food, things like
Yeah.
that. We don't have to struggle. We've not struggled ever, in the
Yeah.
majority of our lifetimes. And
Mhm.
from a biblical perspective, I would say
Mhm.
that I would say that we're living under the sins of our forefathers, and
Mhm.
usually, from a scriptural perspective, the sins and the weight of the forefathers can carry through to the third or fourth generations. And I
Wow.
think the reason that timing is spot on is because
Mhm.
that's how long it takes for the life cycle of a new generation to be to kind of emerge strong enough and you know, to kind of break the shackles of the sins of the forefathers. And so, you know, this and it's going to be a new generation which will, for one, become hardened, for two, find that spiritual strength and rekindle the faith in ourselves, and then that fire will grow and grow. And you know, I think it's probably going to be another 50, 60 years, to be honest, before we really start to band together.
That's an interesting thought. I'm very interested in the concept of Christian nationalism. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think
In
Christianity is
context of
nationalism.
all of it. I'm sorry?
I think Christianity is essentially nationalism. You are to love the children of your own people. That's what your neighbor is. Your neighbor is your brother. You know, so it's the Judeo-Christian doctrines, which again is another spoke on the wheel of globalism. It's the Judeo perspective of how to interpret scripture, and a lot of the Jews have made themselves central, and they're not even the original people of the book anyway, because if you look throughout history, they're an amalgamated people. So they're a lot of their endeavors are on the base of on the basis of prophetic things coming to pass, which was not really even promised to them anyway. So it's essentially bending a book to fit around them, and it's like bending plastic which wasn't shaped for them, essentially. So you know, they missed the boat on Christianity.
So this is what I'm trying to learn more of, because I feel that Christian nationalism is something that we should be promoting more in our spheres. I know that there's a lot of infighting on religion and these things. I'm not trying to go down that road. Rather, let's look at what we have, you know, and we have a lot of Christians in our movement. So what is it that perhaps would be, you know, the best thing for Christians to do in light of what we're dealing with? And I've often, because I think the criticism is generally that Christians are very nice and they don't want to hurt anyone, and then da 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 da, you know, all of that kind of like the sort of passive nature of Christianity. Turn the other cheek, all those sorts of things we're aware of. And I think that's the criticism that people who are against Christians will usually say. So I guess that's that, you know, a new kind of Christianity, perhaps, and Christian nationalism is the way for them. Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, it definitely is. Yeah, I mean, the Crusaders, for example, they were way closer to what a Christian represented back then, with honor and a sense of brotherhood, a sense of kind of unity, a sense of kind of, you know, obviously we had chivalry, we had, you know, we were a hardened people with honor and dignity, and we were just more nationalist minded. But like I say, it's the modern Judeo-Christian values are essentially soft. I mean, some of the I grew up I grew up Christian. Well, I was Catholic to start, and then my dad took me through this phase of evangelical Christian, and so I'm very clued up on all of their mindsets, all of the doctrines, and it was my journey into nationalism which made me question the JQ, and then I kind of questioned it to the point where I rejected Christianity, mostly because of that, and the kind of the evangelical sort of TV evangelist Christians, and I thought, no, there's something not right here. But after a while, after about 15 years, coming back into kind of thinking what is, you know, with all of the real push on LGBTQ and
Yeah.
I started looking back into my faith, and then I came across more Christian nationalist principles and
Mm-hmm.
understanding. And I mean,
Mm.
when I realized that the Jews weren't actually the people of the book, and a lot of the
Right, right, right.
true teachings of Christianity are heavily distorted. I mean, for example, um, there's this doctrine of the rapture, which some Christians might believe in it still, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like the biggest cop out. You've essentially got a generation of Christians which, on their watch, has allowed all the sin to permeate through society, and on their
Yeah,
watch, and
yeah,
you know, the belief that if Christ came back tomorrow, that
yeah.
they've got a free ticket out of here, and they're all good. It's like I'm sorry, but you're part of you've been part of the problem by allowing all of this, and it
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
like the perfect doctrine to have been pushed and promoted so that people avoid of responsibility
Mm.
and accepting responsibility and almost coupled with the whole Zionist movement, because they've really
Yeah,
cuffed the link with that. Coupled
yeah.
with that, there's a turning a blind eye of
Mm.
of things, and like you say, with the softness of having to accept and love everyone, even at your own expense, at the
Yeah,
expense
yeah.
of giving up your own nation.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
we have become pacified in that way.
Yeah, it's a problem. Robert Pyle saying Christian nationalism isn't going to work if Christianity is corrupt like it is now. We would have to fix the churches first, and nobody knows how to do that. That's a pretty heavy topic. Um,
Mm.
I don't. I'm not the guy that has the answer for that, but um, I do think that it has to happen, though. It's something that I try to question Christians that I know about this, and I think it's a topic we should discuss a lot more. Sadie says she's talking to a Hippocratic Oath. Reminds me of the dog that says, "I'm going to get close to this group of humans. What's the worst that can happen?" Thousands of years later, he's a Labradoodle lapdog. Um, I don't actually blame Christianity per se. I think more in terms of modernity. I think that modernity is kind of what pacified us in many ways. And of course, the church has been infiltrated. It's a messy topic. It's a deep topic, but I feel like it's just a number of forces that all played a role in this together. Hippocratic Oath says the crisis of the church parallels the crisis of the current president. They are questioning how this Jesuit became pope and looking at voting shenanigans. Yeah. Yeah, the current pope is like a full-blown communist. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, even
absurd.
Catholics acknowledge that the current pope is not the legitimate pope.
Yeah. It's crazy. Times are crazy. I think this is something that I like Andrew Torba, who runs Gab. He
Yeah,
advocates a lot for Christian nationalism, and I think that I support that. I can't really call myself a traditional Christian, but I was raised Catholic, and I have a lot of mm, connection to that, and I really feel strongly like, yeah, this is something that needs to happen. Um, I wouldn't mind going into a church and start preaching Christian nationalism. I wonder how that would go over. A friend of mine, I think I've mentioned this a couple times on a few of my shows. I have a new friend. He's a Palestinian Christian. And so you can only imagine, the kind of discussions that we have, with
mm,
the war going on and such. And he's very open about the JQ. He knows quite a lot about it, but his mind is wide open to whatever information I can share and help him with. Um, and yeah, I think like this is a kind of an issue of like where and when in the Bible does it say anything about like you can't allow yourself to be like this. This isn't what it's about, you know. I don't know.
Well, for a start, there's the God-defined borders. Um, you know, there's nationalistic
Hmm.
borders
Hmm.
that were defined and given to people, and you know, for it's essentially what they're turning, what they're recreating is the whole sort of Tower of Babel type scenario, but on a global
Mm-hmm.
scale.
Wow.
And you know, it's I mean, when you really look there, I don't want to go too much into it, but
Yeah.
no, yeah, I, yeah, I won't
That's
go
an
too much into stuff, but
well, it's a cool
I've,
concept though. I think
I've heavily looked into a lot of
hmm
um, things with regards to you know
yeah.
Christianity and
Hmm.
who it was intended for and things like this,
Mm.
and yeah, so.
Wow.
But I think that's part of our main problem. We abandoned the true um,
Yeah.
essence of Christianity, and when we do that, exactly what is happening now is said. It says in Scripture that what would happen to us, that people will be raised and elevated above us. We wouldn't lend to them; they would lend to us. Um, we would essentially be brought down into society until we turned the back to our God and walked a righteous path again. And it's
Mm.
when we do that um, that we thrive.
Yeah, I this kind of touches on a topic that I've been thinking about a lot recently is how what is spirituality in wartime? Yeah. That's a pretty
Mm,
heavy concept. Like how does one I mean practice a spiritual life in the time of war, you know? Um and I mean honestly
depends what you define.
we
Yeah.
we have been at war. We're in a race war. We've been in a race war for decades. You know, just because like the news doesn't acknowledge it or something, it doesn't mean that it's not true. You know, again, everybody in the movement is aware of these things, and because there's a time where you get to a point where you're like, I can't really take this toxicity anymore. I have to figure out some kind of way to live with this, and a lot of people that kind of run away or they turn off and tune out, and to each his own, I guess. But I don't think it's good to run away from the movement. You know, we're needed now more than ever, and it's
Mm,
critical that we're still engaged in what's happening. But at the same time, we need to have a methodology to not get destroyed by it. And one of the most recent ideas I've had on that topic is like there's a lot of shows out there that this kind of started back around the time that Trump took office, where they're basically what you call outrage porn, where people just talk about, oh my God, look at this report about how this person said this thing and how crazy it is, and on and on. And for a couple of years, that was like, okay, wow, holy shit, this is crazy. Look at these leftists, something, something. But by now, I think it's time to get off of that. I think that that's like hurting more than it's helping. We already know
mm,
what they're doing and how they do it and why they do it, and they're never gonna stop. Like they're sick. They're fucked up. They're gone. And
yeah.
for us to be wasting our time making shows about, oh, look at what this person did. Look at what that person said. And I'm not talking about like legit news that affects us, like, people being murdered because they're white and these sorts of things, things that are going on in the EU or United Nations, World Economic Forum. That's news. But complaining about, oh, Marvel's new movie is something something or whatever. It's like it's time to walk away from that, I feel, because it's like it's just not. We're not kind of keeping like what's the word, like it's like your brain is not a trash can. That's essentially what I'm trying to say here. Is like,
Yeah,
let's focus our time and energy on productive things as much as we can, you know, and
yeah,
we've already played that game. We've done it long enough, and I would almost say that the left loves it. They get off on pissing us off, and the best thing to do is to ignore them, and that takes all the power away. So this is my thoughts. Yeah.
yeah. I know what you mean. Um, it's I think that's part of it, isn't it? I often see that like it's almost like clown world is there and it's so hard not to
Hmm.
kind of create some form of entertainment out of it. You have
Hmm.
all these shows of more conservative or right wing guys just mocking the left, and
Hmm.
it's but it kind of still props up the system in a way because it's still
Yeah,
putting viewers in seats
you got
on
it.
YouTube, for example. It's
Yep.
still throwing shekels that way, and
Hmm.
it still also impedes us mentally and physically.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Right. It's demoralizing in a way. It's counterproductive
yeah,
in
yeah,
this regard. So, and there's a lot of people making a living off of that.
hmm,
Um, and I don't like dislike a lot of those people or whatever, those sort of right wing channels. I'm not, you know, attacking them as people or something like that. I'm just sort of saying like it's time to move on. I don't think that this is really helpful to us. So that's my thoughts on it. What do you guys
yeah.
think in the audience? Let's get your input on this. Tell you, I'm super frustrated about today's show, though. Like everything went wrong. I'm like one of these guys that loves technology to work right. And
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
mad if it doesn't.
Maybe you have to pay for the official a license or something, and then they'll enable you to do
Well,
more, have more functionality.
yeah, yeah, I don't know, but I guess it's a live and learn kind of situation. But my apologies to the audience, and I'm going to do another show just for the speech itself. So yeah, we got Robert says, "Who cares about Marvel movies? Who even still goes to the movies anymore?" Well, yeah, that's a great question. Um, yes, what am I gonna see? There's some movie coming out that I want to see. Oh crap, I forgot what it is.
Napoleon?
Yeah, Nepal. See, that's why you're awesome, dude. You can read my mind. Napoleon, I want to see that. Um, I would like to see the next Dune that comes out. I mean, it's I'm not crazy
Dune?
about the casting, but the cinematography, the eye candy of it,
Oh, okay.
it's just extraordinary. Um, Dillinger says, yeah, outrage bait is just same product in a different packaging. Um, Apparently, the new movie, which is basically like, three feminists. That's essentially the movie. This it got the lowest opening, like made the least amount of money of any Marvel movie so far, which is
Yeah, I think I
no
heard about that.
surprise. Um,
Absolute flop.
yeah, I'm not crying over it. Hippocratic Oath says there are a lot of esoteric types that are predicting Christian nationalism is the next phase. But which flavor? Zio Protestant or national capitalism or Torba or Fuentes? So, regardless of where you stand on all these things, this is a force. It is a force. And, I know people that like are like strongly against Christians and Christianism and whatever. I mean, I know you've got your arguments and your thoughts and this and that.
Mm.
But regardless, this is a force that exists. Like Nick Fuentes alone is a gigantic force, So,
Yeah.
and again, whatever you think of him, I'm
Uh,
not trying to get into that. But go ahead.
yeah.
What are your thoughts, Paul?
Um, well, no, I'm not bashing on any Christian. I mean, for me, I understand there's people that have a more pagan mindset, and
Hmm.
I mean, and I know they obviously have a deep rooted hatred for Christianity, and they see it in a certain way. But I think that's ultimately they're on the other end of the spectrum of the Judeo-Christians that have been deceived in terms of fully absorbing it and embracing the perspective that essentially the Christian perspective from a from
Hmm.
Jewish
Yeah.
mindset and
Yeah.
think tanks and so that tinted lens essentially. And so the opposite extreme of that is you've got your the pagans that are desperately wanting to cleave to a sense of identity again and
Hmm.
culture, and I don't
Yeah.
blame them for that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but they're repelled by Christianity because they see the face of of a Jewish person that they do
Yeah.
not identify with.
Right.
But
Right.
people have to understand that the apostles really went out to bring the gospel to the exact people that it was intended for, and
Hmm. Hmm.
so that is essentially what transpired. It is the essential destiny of the European man
Hmm.
to embody that, and that's exactly what happened. When you really look at the scriptures and where they went, I mean, they didn't choose a mixture of people. They were all European nations that the apostles went to, and
Interesting. That I didn't know.
yeah, literally, and the nations that were back then sort of had some churches built up, like in Ethiopia. There were white populations back there anyway at that
Yeah.
time.
Interesting.
So that's what a lot of people don't realize. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, a lot of our history has been, they say, whitewashing history, but really, a lot
Hmm.
of white history has been kind of brownwashed. Simply, I think a lot of it happened
Brown
with the
washed. Yeah.
Islamic invasions and stuff. And
Yeah.
there's a massive assumption that the Middle East is by default kind of Arab. Well, Arab essentially means to mix, to grow dark. That's the
Interesting.
actual root word of the
Huh.
Hebrews. Arab
Huh.
is to mix, to
Huh.
interweave, and to merge yourself with another.
Wow.
So and the
Hmm.
default state therefore of to grow dark would be to be white or to be lighter.
Huh.
And so the complexion of the Middle East and the Levant area was predominantly Caucasian.
Hmm.
When you trace the roots back, even haplogroups, you could study that, and you find the essential place of dispersion for whites was essentially where Noah's Ark was said to have landed, which
Oh my
is sort
God.
of
Wow.
Mesopotamia area.
Wow.
And all of our Indo-European languages can be traced back there.
Huh.
And it just seems to be the birthplace for Caucasians.
Hmm. It's that's a whole other rabbit hole right there. You know what I mean? There's like
Mm,
a lot to talk about. And I mean, people they define themselves by history. Like where are you from? I mean, that's essentially a, a core aspect of who we are. And how we think of ourselves. So I guess those are important things to think through and talk through. But in the
mm.
end, I'm kind of the mindset that we don't want to get lost in historic abstractions either. That we kind of need to have answers now, kind of. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
everyone has their own,
absolutely.
like well, yeah, this is my answer because this is who I am, or this is the religion or ideology or identity that I have. And to each his own, whatever. I'm sympathetic to pagans for sure, but I'm not anti-Christian at all. And I feel that our problem transcends religion in the sense of like how we fight with each other. It obviously doesn't transcend Judaism and Islam. I don't mean that, but
Mm.
we can't really afford to sort of get down the bog of fighting over who's right and what's better and this and that. I always say,
Yeah.
like, when after we win, then you can go back to arguing. But we, yeah, yeah. I mean, we have to win first. Fair enough. I get it. I know these are serious questions and issues, and they're very dear to people's hearts and this and that. But in the end, anything and everything, all of our resources have to be put together to fight and win. And
Yeah.
Christianity is one very, very huge force in the white identity weird world. So that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there should be no in-group fighting. We can't afford it. It's like this winter, you know, when everyone's got crazy energy bills to pay. Are you going to go out
Mhm.
buy yourself some brand new Hugo Boss clothes or something?
Hugo
You,
Boss,
you
of
need
all the things you
everything needs to
yeah.
be put into perspective. We can't afford. There's things we can't afford to do, and in-group fighting is one of them. So
Yeah,
any
no, well said.
differences that we have, any debates we should have zero hatred towards our kindred brothers.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can recall when I started becoming aware of this infighting and these issues and stuff, and I try to listen to all sides. I try to be as objective as I can, and
Mm,
hear out, like, okay, I get it. I see your point. Um, n- it's just tricky stuff. I think that one of the issues with us is that we tend to want to conform to whatever the in group is. If you're in this group, then you're kind of looking towards your friends to be like, well, I don't want to lose my friends, because this is my in group, and that's not
yeah,
the way truth works. You don't like agree with a certain truth because your friends do. It's like that's not the way to go. And I think that's how leftism works, to be honest. I mean, the people who like look at all those that fell for like the vaccine and this and that, it's all about conformity.
yeah.
And
Well,
we
of
need to
course, I
transcend
think.
that. I'm sorry?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think they are. The morality of the left has been hijacked because they have essentially taken God out of the equation. There's a vacuum there,
Big
and
time.
the government is essentially just filling it. And they think they take on board what they think is perceived to be moral. Sure, we need to
Mhm.
take in
Mhm.
refugees. We need to do this. Sure, we need
Yeah.
to herald women above men because they've been oppressed and so on.
Yeah. Oh,
There's all
yeah,
these
yeah,
different things that they get behind, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
they obviously have a heart and compassion, and we are by default compassionate people, and that is,
True. Yeah.
as Kai said, we're part of our biology is to be have a certain sense of compassion for others. It's
Mhm.
built into
Yeah.
us.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just been hijacked.
Well, that's it's just a very fascinating topic to me personally, is how we have these traits that, we're a very in-group kind of people. We have high trust societies, and when you mix in foreigners, then we trust them too. And we like, okay, in America yesterday or today, this happened just very recently, there was a black hockey player who murdered another hockey player viciously by kicking him in the neck and cutting his throat.
Yeah,
And
I saw
and
that. That was
it
terrible.
was, to anybody with like 10 brain cells, you could see it was murder. It was just unbridled murder out in the open. And the way that he jumped, the way that he put his leg, there's no move in hockey whatsoever that looks like that. It was a niggardly move to do, to like, oh yeah, you're coming in on me. Oh well, I'm gonna. They do this in sports all the time, where they punch and do illegal moves. But to kick someone in the neck with a fucking hockey blades, I mean,
Yeah.
what in the hell is, and again, if you know these people and you know how they operate, this is par for the course. This is totally normal behavior. And then to be like, well, we're not sure it's murder. That's not even a fucking question. The shit kind of drives me out of my mind. Well, that black player just came back out on the ice on a new game, and the whole audience stood up. All these white people gave him a standing ovation. That's disgusting beyond the. There's no measurement of how grotesque the self-hatred is. There's no
Who got a
measurement.
standing ovation?
Yes, they gave that black player a standing ovation when he came back.
Really? Why?
Well, that's exactly the question. Why would you do that? I mean, the guy clearly, because it's white guilt. You see what I'm saying? It's white guilt,
Has he
and
not
like,
been prosecuted or anything?
nope. And he's right back out
Wow,
on the, yeah, right back out
that
on
is
the field.
unbelievable.
That's
He
what I'm telling you. That's
clearly,
why I'm so
he
angry.
clearly, he, for a start, his leg had no reason to be up there. When was the last time you saw a hockey player's leg up there, unless he literally fell backwards? But this
It's
guy was
not
going
even,
forwards, right?
yeah. I mean, there was, to my knowledge, there's like one other case in hockey history where somebody had their throat slashed, and that guy happened to survive. He was a goalie. And, like when all the players are rushing towards the goalie to try to, you can get a little violent in there. And it was very, very clearly someone slipped on the ice, their leg shot up and hit him in the neck. And fortunately, the
Mm.
guy survived. But if you see the clip of this black player, he clearly lunges out and kicks the guy in the neck. I mean, there's no denying it. So like the level of anti-white self-hatred in our society is, I don't even know what kind of adjective I could use to describe it. That they would stand up and give this guy a standing ovation. How
Mm.
how stupid and twisted and low do you have to be to do that? So I mean, I'm kind of hating on the whites here for the way that they're behaving. Um,
Yeah, it's hard not to, isn't it?
it is. So like that's but anyway, all of this anger and all this, again, we talk about toxicity. How do you how do you process this in a spiritual way? Wow,
Well, yeah, exactly.
because like I don't
It
like I
is. It
don't
is tough.
this compared to complaining about the new Marvel movie is no comparison. I don't have time for that's like a mosquito compared to what this is.
Mm.
And this just again the psychology of it. So that comes back to us, what we do. The speeches like what Kai Moros is his speech that we listen to and his others online. It's about educating, emboldening our people to stand up for our rights and not be kind of succumbed by this. It's disturbing. Yeah. Well, let me look at some comments in the chat. We've had a lot of interesting comments here. Hippocratic Oath says Judeo-Christian refers to a Jew has converted to Catholicism. The meaning has only recently been changed to be syncretic. Interesting. Let's move on. I think I'm being shadow banned or something. I'm not seeing some of the comments in the chat. Interesting. They do that. They do that. All of my comments on Twitter are like they have like a warning over the top of them. I think that one of the big criticisms of Christianity is that it's deracinated. That so like my Palestinian Christian friend just recently kind of dropped that into a conversation about like race, and I didn't respond. I didn't want, I'm not really going to go there, but
How do you mean about race? What did he say?
well, so we're talking about like, okay, I actually suggested you should probably wear a cross so that people see you and don't like harass you or something, because I suspect there's going to be a lot of shit going down, with whites, Muslims, not even just whites. I mean, da da da. I mean, there hasn't been any kind of Muslim terrorism in America yet, as a result of this thing. There's big, public displays, protests, these kinds of things, but not there's no like bombings or anything, God forbid, but I just said, you might think about this. And so then he kind of switched it over to like, oh yeah, white people, racism, yada yada. And I just kind of like dropped it. But my thinking is like, well, for starters, Islam is not a race, it's not a race. And secondly, how can you blame people for being scared? I mean, it's not racism to notice patterns and behavior. It's not racism
Exactly.
to know. It's not racism to know the nature of Islam and the history of Islam and how it has, used the sword to destroy many, many cultures. Um, I was looking at a chart yesterday about the racial similarities between Iranians, Jews, and Caucasians. And whites have more ethnic relationship to Iranians than to Jews, which are a whole other, race. So the Semitic people. So I was just thinking that's kind of interesting in light of this war that the Jews are trying to get us into. Um,
Hmm.
so anyway, I'm kind of going all over the place with this topic, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, I think the Iranians were actually more white
Indo-European.
back then.
Yeah,
More,
and
yeah,
right.
like I say, there were Caucasian groups that populated that
Yeah,
region,
yeah.
and it's really the Arab slave trade which kind of browned off
Ah,
much of the Middle East,
yeah.
to be honest.
Wow.
And you still get remnants of very distinct sort of Caucasian features in the likes of
Right.
Afghanistan,
I was
Kazakhstan.
sure, hugely. I was just seeing these little Syrian girls protesting, and they had blonde hair. I was like, wow. But people underestimate them. That I don't know how many millions of Caucasians were taken into slavery during the time of the Barbary Wars. This is kind of a short period in American history where this is how we got a navy. Is that we sent ships in to fight Muslims to stop the slave trade where they were taking Europeans. And
Mm.
you got to imagine how many Europeans were integrated into these Arab cultures, and then how much of that DNA kind of remained. And that echoes back what you were saying earlier about Arab being something about the browning of people and such. I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, Robert Pyle says we should stop watching all sports, all of them, all pro sports are anti-white now. 1000% agree with you. I totally agree
True,
with you.
true.
I
Apart from
cannot, and I mean,
yeah, I've got a soft spot for MMA and UFC.
okay.
I do have a
Um,
soft spot for that, but I agree.
do you do any martial
At
arts,
least
by
I
the way?
don't take the knee. I used to do Muay Thai boxing for a
Oh,
long
no
time,
kidding. Okay.
from
You know
the
I'm
age of.
I teach
I
kung
don't
fu, right? Did you know I teach kung fu?
know. Okay. I
Okay.
know you have been into you've got a sort of affinity for a lot of the Oriental cultures, haven't you?
I do. I do. I lived in Asia for 5 years and was a
That
board.
said, a lot of martial arts stemmed from the ancient Greeks. One of the first martial arts was called pancration, and
Interesting.
that was actually what you get now. Like you see now, it's like MMA, and so it seems that as a lot of sort of Greeks colonized and branched out, that a
Yeah.
lot of the cultures became a bit, the martial arts became a bit more
Mhm.
separated and
Mhm.
then refocused. But
It's
yeah,
that's a fascinating
pancreatics.
topic. Yeah. That's a very
Yeah,
interesting topic. I know Greek ideas traveled across the Silk Road back in ancient times, and I would be interested to know, what those things are. Dillinger says something. Says, in my opinion, what you two do with art is much more valuable than speeches. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't. I think Kai's speech it trumps anything I've ever done. His speeches are very powerful, but I think it's certainly better than watching, you know, blackball or whatever, all the different kinds of sports out there. Because like whites are essentially, there's so few whites in sports now in America anyway. And it's like, why am I watching this? Hippocratic oath says Mongolian and Arab invasions really messed up the Iranians. Yeah, so that's the thing. Uh, Jason Reza Giorgiani, you guys might know of him. He's a philosopher in our sphere. I haven't really seen anything from him in quite a while, but he's half Irish, half Iranian, and he has done a lot of interesting speeches, talks, writings, etc., on Iran before Persia, I should say, before Islam. And I would say that it's on par with Europe in terms of like it's Indo-European. And like
Mm.
that whole, I mean, from sort of Western Europe all the way across to I suppose, where Russia meets Mongolia, perhaps there was a great deal of incredible culture and civilization in ancient times. Uh, I can't go too far into it because I'm not that knowledgeable about it, but I highly recommend looking up Jason Reza Giorgiani's lectures, his books, etc. Super brilliant guy. We were in touch. We talked a lot, offline, just chatting on different things when I was doing American Zarathustra. Um, he's also an artist, and there's other aspects. So I don't know. It'd be neat to maybe reach out to him again, see what he's
Sure.
up to. Blue-eyed Afghans. Sadie says, "Imagine allowing your daughter to watch you cheer for an African after you have a jersey on with another man's name on your back." Yeah, I mean, again, it's racial. It's about racial consciousness. When people put a football team ahead of their own racial identity, to me that's like the ultimate in stupidity. And
Yeah.
I know I'd get lynched for saying that where I live, but it's just foolish to me. Um, and I mean, I don't have like sports are sports. They're games. They're for fun. I guess I just feel that there's so much focus on them that like people revolve their whole identity on like my local sports team. And to me, that's a form of, I don't know, there's something very Jewy about that because it removes us from who we are as a people and as a culture. Again, nothing wrong with enjoying sports, but taking it to the level where it's like it's your whole identity is to me like there's something wrong with you. There's really, really something wrong with you.
Mm.
It might sound cruel to some people, but I stand by it. Um, so it's funny with this artwork here because I'm really, really happy with the way this piece is coming together, and I think the audience can kind of see, what the intent is, what the story is here, the kind of the narrative. But there's a lot of pretty sophisticated light and shadow things that have to happen in here to make this really work.
Pop.
And
Yeah. It's looking
tough
good
to
though.
talk.
Really good.
Say again?
It's
I didn't hear
looking
you.
really good.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
looking really good. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that it's hard to talk and concentrate, and
Yeah.
not
I know.
screw it up. So like I'm in a little bit of a tricky spot here. Um, let's see. Okay, what do we got in the chat? Sadie says sports ball not even once is the opioid of the masses. It's escapism. Yeah, I mean, like I try to look and say, okay, like I like comic books, I like music, I like movies. That's sort of my escapism. But the difference is that those things have heroic narratives. They have emotional dimensions to them. They have a culture. They're the arts. You know what I'm saying? I don't think of sports as the arts. Sports are sports. It's a game. It's okay to, like, yay, rah, 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 my team. But I can remember being at like a sports bar visiting some friends, and then our local team lost, and everybody in the place was like super angry and depressed, and I was kind of shocked at how retarded they were about this. I was like, oh, I mean, like, oh, well, it was a good game, or like, oh, next year or whatever. But like, to really be like super angry is like, what's wrong with you? Get a fucking life. I mean, that is just
Mhm.
fucking hate as far as I'm concerned. Have you seen Messi and the Argentinian team mock the French soccer team? Oh man, no, I'm not plugged into that. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I believe you. I'll take your word for it. I've seen some pretty based behavior in European soccer fans. Okay. What else we got here? Uh, Dillinger, one of the keys to the Jews' success is that they are really committed to prophesizing things. Creating art that gives people a sense of good things will happen is a powerful force. And I've only said this like a bazillion times on my shows, is that the fact that they control Hollywood and that they're so invested in the arts and entertainment is a testament to the power of the arts and
Mhm.
why we do what we do, why we need more, people, we need more platforms, uh, all of it, like the way that the audience interacts with us. We're doing us right now. You know what I mean? Like this is us being us without interference, without subversion. And that's a beautiful thing. So yeah. I just wish the damn audio worked on the speech. That was my big plan today. Um
We got to hear a lot of it though. I heard a lot of it
did
at
you?
least.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, that's good.
there was
I'm
a big portion played.
okay, wonderful. The other thing I don't like, see, I'm not, I don't know if I could say I'm a perfectionist, but I don't like things to go wrong on my shows. I try to give people quality. I don't want to waste anybody's time, and I
Yeah,
try
I
to,
understand.
yeah, I try to put together a show that is engaging, blah blah blah. You get the idea. So like for some kind of technical problem of that nature to happen, especially on a topic so important, is pretty frustrating for me. But we will carry on. We
Yep,
shall carry on.
indeed
Yeah.
we will.
Yes. Indubitably. Oh, some kinds of issues here. I'm gonna step away from the computer for a second. I have to get like a paper towel for. I got a little smear over here. I gotta clean that up. So here we go. I like what Sadie's saying here. I'm so happy to have a bunch of new friends on my channel. There's been a lot of new people coming on. I'm trying to figure out why are my numbers going up. I mean, I'm not complaining, of course, but it's interesting to me that like I just keep getting more subscribers and things are just going really well for the channel. And
Yeah, that's good.
I need to kind of get more savvy about how do I monetize it and all that. I'm getting around to that, but anyway, I appreciate your presence here, guys. Um, Robert says you play a game and then move on. That's the way it's supposed to be, the way that it is now with some people is unnatural. I mean, when I was young, we played football and this and that and the other thing. It was great fun. You're just having a good time with the guys in the neighborhood or whatever. And I do get that, like, there's a sort of status that people get from being on the football team or this or that, the basketball team, whatever, whatever. But I mean, you know, are you curing cancer? I mean, like, why do people in sports get so much like respect? I don't. To me, this it just doesn't. I don't know. It kind of doesn't make sense to me. Like it's okay. It's impressive. Fine. You can throw a ball in a hoop or something, or you can run really fast. Oh, that's great. But like, what are you actually contributing to society? I know. I maybe I'm being a little bitter.
Yeah, I mean, sports have always had a place in society, I think. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's the level that we um, endorse them. No
Right.
way should sports players be getting paid like the amount of money that they're getting.
That's disgusting. Yeah.
It's yeah,
It's grotesque. It's grotesque. Yeah.
yeah. There's a definite inversion, really.
Yeah. I there's a guy I know that does kind of like home repair type work, and there's a football player that lives in one of the rich areas near where I live. He's like a famous football player, and the my friend was hired to go and do some work on his home. This is a black guy, and he
Mm,
gets in there and he notices like there's this like really horrible I don't even know what to call it, like there's just hundreds and hundreds of flies in around like the garage area or something, and
okay.
and like stuck in this certain area, and the football players asked him like can you get rid of the flies here? And like for starters, the dude is like he does electrician and maintenance type work, and that's more of like you know pest control, right? And he
Hmm.
notices that the football player never throws out his garbage. He just piles it up in the corner and piles it up week after week after week. So guess what?
Yeah.
He's got a fly, and I mean the dude. I mean this football player must have an IQ of like 10, to not know how to throw out his own freaking garbage. Like wow,
Yeah.
wow. And he's making millions of dollars. He's got dozens of cars and all. I'm like, that's so upside down. It's just so grotesque to me. I don't know. I can't tolerate it.
No, I mean they're obviously used to a lifestyle that they don't really need to do these things themselves. I think they become far removed. A lot of them come from working class families, don't they? Though.
Mm. Yeah, somebody in the past showed me some information about how it came to be that like there's no white, not no, but like there's very few white people in sports now. And if you look at the owners of the teams and you check out their religious and ethnic background, you can start to see a pattern.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Because like that's what we do around here. We notice patterns.
Well, I think, like I said, it's the bottom of the pyramid in terms of society that tends to gravitate to these positions of playing
Yeah,
sport. So
yeah,
in I don't know what it's like in the US, but for us in the typical working class families and housing
mm,
estates and
mm,
council estates, they tend to be where people migrate to and they interact with, and so they naturally
mm.
breed the more sort of mixed race people and children
I
of
see.
the.
Yeah,
So I think they emerge from the bottom really and get elevated up to
yeah,
essentially entertain.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and I mean we need entertainment. It's again. I'm not trying to say like we shouldn't have sports or whatever. I just think that there's a kind of a weird social dimension to it, where we've kind of fallen, where we've sort of fallen away from things that are important, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sadie. She says art stirs the soul.
Yeah, well, my piece is finished, so you can shift back to yours, whatever you're doing.
Lovely, lovely. Yeah, I had the camera on mine just a moment ago, so like I think what we'll do is wrap it up. It's been a fairly
Yeah, yeah,
long
it's
show.
getting late. So,
Yeah, fairly late where you are, especially. So
yeah,
let me just thank everybody in the chat for interacting with us, having some good conversation. My apologies for whatever uh, tech issues that we had today. I'm going to have a show exclusively for the speech, Kaimoro speech that I had there. And Paul, I want to thank you so much for coming on and doing what we
you're
do.
welcome. Yeah, yeah.
Again, Patriotic Arts Community. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can check out
Awesome.
what Paul's doing.
Yeah.
And then again, my work is for sale as well. If you want to contact me through my website. Any closing thoughts, Paul, before we wrap it up?
Well, maybe just to say, I will definitely look into more of Kai's speeches. He seems to be an intellectual force for our people.
Huge, hugely
So I will definitely pick his brains, and I'm going to share this after.
beautiful.
Hopefully, you see it and give it, well, at least appreciate it. So,
Marvelous. Okay. All right, gang. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day. God bless you. We love you. Take care.
take care. Bye.